I was 7 when I first realized that my body knew fear before my mind could name it. It was the way my breath caught in my throat when a car pulled up outside the group home. How my stomach twisted at the sound of raised voices down the hall. No one ever told me to be afraid, no one had to. The air itself carried warnings. Invisible, but undeniable. And so I learned to read between the lines of silence, to brace myself for disappointment before it found me first. That's what growing up without parents does to you. It makes you fluent in survival. Long before you learn how to trust, there's a kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises, a wound that no doctor can stitch, no bandage can cover. It lives inside, where no one else can see it. It's the ache of being handed from one stranger to another, of being loved conditionally if at all. It's the quiet devastation of realizing that your worth is measured by how well you behave, how quietly you suffer, how little you ask for. You don't cry because you know no one will come. You don't reach out because you've been burned too many times. And so you build walls not because you want to be alone, but because you've never known what it means to be safe with someone else. They call us foster kids like it's just a label, like it doesn't carry the weight of everything we lost. But there are no words for what it feels like to grow up without a constant, without someone who stays, without someone who looks at you and says, "You're mine," not because they have to, but because they choose to. We don't get that. Instead, we get caseworkers with rotating names, beds that never feel like ours, rules that replace love. And somewhere along the way, we start believing that this is normal, that this is all we deserve. I used to think if I was good enough, quiet enough, obedient enough, someone would finally want me. I tried so hard to be small, to take up less space, to make myself easy to keep around. But people still left, homes still changed, and I kept trying to disappear more, until I wasn't sure who I was beneath all the masks. There's something soul-crushing about realizing that your best self isn't enough to make someone stay, that no matter how much you try, you'll always be someone else's temporary fix. And yet, somehow we survive. Somehow, we wake up each morning and keep going, even when the past claws at our backs. We find ways to hold ourselves together when no one else will. We learn to love in pieces, to trust in fragments, to hope in whispers, because that's all we've ever had. And maybe that's why we carry these invisible scars into adulthood. They remind us of what we came from, of how far we've come, of how much we've endured without breaking completely. But surviving isn't the same as healing. And healing, that's a different kind of battle altogether. It comes later, often years after we've aged out of the system, after we've been tossed into a world that assumes we've moved on. But how do you move on from something that never truly ends? How do you stop waiting for someone to show up when your whole life has been built around absence? Adulthood hits differently when you grew up without parents. Suddenly, there's no one to call when you're sick, no one to visit on holidays, no one who automatically shows up for your milestones. Birthdays pass quietly, emergencies go unnoticed, and you learn to celebrate yourself, to comfort yourself, to be your own safety net. It sounds empowering, and sometimes it is, but mostly it's lonely. It's exhausting. It's living with the weight of knowing that no one is watching your back, not even a little. We become experts at pretending we're fine, at smiling through the ache of missing something we never really had. People assume that if we made it this far, we must have gotten over our past. But grief doesn't work that way. Trauma doesn't either. They linger, they whisper, they haunt. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and your defenses are low, you remember every goodbye, every rejection, every time someone chose someone else instead of you. But here's the thing, those invisible scars aren't just wounds. They're proof that we lived through something most people can't imagine, proof that we endured, proof that we are stronger than we give ourselves credit for. Because surviving, without a family, without roots, without unconditional love, that takes a kind of strength that can't be taught. It's forged in fire, shaped by loss, tempered by silence, and slowly, painfully, we begin to rebuild. We create our own families, not of blood, but of choice, of people who stay, who listen, who love in ways we once thought were impossible. We learn to speak our truths, even when our voices shake. We reclaim our stories, even when they hurt to tell. We allow ourselves to need, to feel, to heal, not because it's easy, but because we deserve to. There's a strange kind of beauty in that, in rising from the ashes of abandonment, in finding light in places we were told would always be dark, in realizing that our pain didn't ruin us, it reshaped us, made us deeper, more empathetic, more attuned to the silent suffering of others. We become witnesses to the unspoken, guardians of the unseen, storytellers for those who still can't find their voice. So if you're out there, Carrying your own invisible scars, know that you're not broken. Know that you're not alone. Know that your story matters, even if no one ever wrote it down. Even if no one ever stayed long enough to hear it all. Your survival is a miracle. Your resilience is a revolution. And your healing, however slow, however messy, is possible. Because we are echoes of the unheld. But we are not silent anymore.